This episode is an ESL listening practice for intermediate learners. You will hear a natural conversation with clear pronunciation and everyday English. No tests, no pressure, just listening. Let's start.
Hello and welcome to ESL Listening Practice. I'm so glad you've decided to join us today.
We really are.
If you're tuning in right now, it's likely because you're someone who takes their English learning very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
You've probably spent years in classrooms, you've filled out countless workbooks, and you can understand a significant amount of the English language.
Yeah, in fact, you're probably understanding almost everything we're saying right now without much trouble at all.
Exactly. And that's because today we're speaking specifically to a very special group of learners.
That's right. We're talking to those of you at the B2 level.
The intermediate stage.
In the world of language teaching, we call this the intermediate or sometimes upper intermediate stage. You are definitely not a beginner anymore.
Not at all.
You can watch movies, you can travel, you can hold a real conversation, but despite all that success, you might be feeling something very specific.
And very, very frustrating.
You might be feeling stuck.
We call this the intermediate plateau. I see this with my students constantly.
Oh, all the time.
It's that feeling where you know you've improved so much since you started, but now your progress just seems to have flatlined.
It's like hitting a wall.
It is. You want to express these complex thoughts you have or, show your personality, but the words just get tangled up in your mouth.
Or you feel like you're translating every single thing in your head.
Right. And you just can't bridge that gap to feeling truly fluent and effortless.
Precisely. It's a very, very common phenomenon. And when that friction happens, when you feel that resistance in your speaking, I want to ask you, listening, what is your instinct?
What's the first thing you want to do to fix it?
Yeah.
Well, based on what I see in the classroom, the instinct is it's almost always to go back to the books.
Always.
Students think, okay, I made a mistake, so I must not know the rule well enough. I need to study more grammar.
I need more exercises.
If I just master the third conditional or the past perfect continuous, then I'll finally be fluent.
That's exactly the instinct. It's this belief that accuracy, perfect grammar is what leads to fluency.
But our mission today is to offer you a different perspective.
A completely different one.
We're going to argue that if your goal is to speak better and more fluently, doing more grammar exercises is actually the wrong strategy for you at this stage.
It really is. It sounds completely counterintuitive, doesn't it?
It does. We're teachers, and here we are telling you to put the grammar book away.
Right. But stick with us.
Because by the end of this discussion, we're going to break down exactly why you feel stuck, why your brain is struggling to process speech, and we're going to give you actionable strategies to improve your speaking that have absolutely nothing to do with studying rules.
Okay, so we really need to unpack this belief that more rules equals better speaking. It's such a strong conviction for most learners.
It is.
Why do we cling to grammar so tightly? I think it really comes down to what we call the logic trap.
The logic trap. That's a great name for it. Because when you think about it, when you were a beginner, grammar was the solution.
It was?
When you're at the A1 or A2 level, you literally don't know how to construct a sentence. You have no intuition for the language yet.
None at all.
If you want to talk about yesterday, you have to learn the rule for the past tense. You study the rule, you apply it, and, suddenly communication happens.
Exactly. So early in your learning journey, the formula is crystal clear. Input a rule, output better speech. It works perfectly.
You're like an engineer building a bridge. You need the blueprint or the bridge just falls down.
Right. But here's the reality check for everyone listening today. That formula, it stops working effectively when you hit the B2 level.
The whole game changes.
The landscape changes completely.
Yeah.
The problems you face now are just not the same problems you faced as a beginner.
So let's define that B2 reality a bit more clearly. If you are listening to this and following our conversation,
which you are,
your problem is not a lack of information. You have the data. You have the rules in your head.
That is the crucial distinction. The struggle at the B2 stage is not about a lack of rules. It's a lack of confidence, speed, and natural usage.
Yeah.
There's a massive psychological and, frankly, neurological difference between knowing how to write a correct sentence on a quiz,
right,
and feeling good saying it in a dynamic real-time conversation.
Feeling good saying it. That is such a key phrase. I had students who can write a perfect email if I give them 20 minutes.
Flawless grammar.
Flawless. But if I put them in a coffee shop or a business meeting and just ask them a simple question, they freeze.
And that freezing is what we need to solve today. I can promise you that doing another worksheet on prepositions is not going to stop you from freezing.
It might actually make it worse.
It might.
Let's take an inventory of what our listeners likely already know. I think it helps to realize just how full your toolbox actually is.
That's a great idea.
So if you're a B2 learner, you already possess the present simple and continuous.
Yep, you've got those.
You have the past tenses. You have future forms.
You understand conditionals, the if clauses.
You can even handle the passive voice in most situations.
That covers an enormous amount of ground. I mean, if you look at the linguistic data on daily English usage, even among native speakers like us,
Right.
We're not walking around using these obscure, complex grammatical structures all day long. We use the core tenses.
The B2 learner already possesses these tools. You own them, at least intellectually.
You do. So if you own them, why doesn't it feel like it? Why do you feel like you're missing something?
That's the question.
And this brings us to the core problem. It's the distinction between knowledge and access.
Knowledge versus access.
Or, to use more technical terms, the difference between declarative memory and procedural memory.
I love this distinction. Let's break that down for everyone. Declarative versus procedural.
Okay, think of it like a library versus a reflex. Declarative knowledge is the library. It's information you know about.
Okay.
You know that the past participle of go is gone. You can find that book on the shelf if you have a moment to look for it. That's your grammar knowledge.
So it's stored information.
Exactly. Procedural knowledge, on the other hand, is knowing how to do something instantly without thinking. It's muscle memory.
Like riding a bicycle.
Or tying your shoelaces.
Yeah, you don't think about the physics of the knot. Your fingers just do it.
Exactly. And speaking a language fluently is a procedural skill. It needs to be a reflex.
They have to be automatic.
Right. The problem B2 learners face is something we sometimes call the selector problem. When you're speaking, your brain is treating the language like a library. It's frantically scanning through all the rules you've learned to find the perfect structure for what you want to say.
I can visualize this perfectly. It's like standing in front of a massive closet full of clothes and panicking because you don't know what to wear, even though you have hundreds of shirts.
That is a perfect analogy. It's brilliant. The beginner has 2 shirts.
Easy choice.
They just grab one because they have no choice. The intermediate learner has 50 shirts, and they're standing there thinking, okay, is this one formal enough? Does it match these pants? Is it the right season? You are overwhelmed by options.
And while you're standing there deciding, the conversation has moved on. The person you're talking to is just waiting.
Or, even if you do start speaking, that selection process, that choosing, uses up all of your brain's processing power.
It's exhausting.
Think of it like a computer's RAM. If your brain is using 90% of its RAM just to sort through grammar rules, you have very little power left to actually, move your mouth and connect with the listener.
And that's what slows you down.
This slows down your speech motor and creates that sensation of not being fluent.
So it really is a processing issue, not an education issue.
That's it.
You don't need to buy more shirts. You need to learn how to grab one quickly without overthinking it.
Yes.
And this leads us directly into the psychology of the situation. We often call this grammar thinking.
Grammar thinking. It is essentially the enemy of fluency. It's linked to what linguists call the monitor model.
Okay.
Imagine you have a little editor sitting in the back of your brain. Every time you're about to say something, this editor steps in and whispers.
Wait,
does that make or do? Is it in Tuesday or on Tuesday? Hold on, let me check the rule book.
I think we've all felt that little editor. And what happens physically when that monitor, that editor, kicks in during a conversation?
You pause.
Right.
You hesitate. Your rhythm breaks. You might make those sounds.
You look away.
You might look up and away from the person you're talking to. You disconnect from the interaction because you've retreated inside your own head to consult your internal textbook.
And for the learner, that feels terrible. It feels like failure.
It feels awful, and it creates a vicious cycle. You focus on grammar because you want to be perfect. That focus causes you to pause and self-correct. That hesitation makes your speech sound unnatural and halting.
Okay.
You hear yourself sounding unnatural, so you lose confidence. And because you lost confidence, what do you tell yourself?
I need to study more grammar.
Exactly.
It's a trap.
Yeah.
The cure you're reaching for is actually the cause of the disease.
Precisely. You are feeding the monster. The perfectionism trap is very real. When you're constantly searching for the perfect grammatical structure, you are preventing the flow of conversation.
Right.
And here's a hard truth that I try to teach all my students. Long, awkward pauses are much more detrimental to communication than small grammar errors.
That is such an important point. I think we really need to emphasize that. Pauses hurt communication more than mistakes do.
Absolutely. Think about it from the listener's experience. If you look at me and you say, yesterday I go to the store, I understand you perfectly.
100%.
It's technically grammatically incorrect, but the message is 100% clear. However, if you say, yesterday, I, long silence, went to the store, that silence is painful.
It really is.
It breaks the connection. It makes me, as the listener, feel anxious for you. I start wanting to finish your sentence just to end the tension.
So we need to shift the goal from perfect sentences to flowing connection.
That's it.
And to help visualize this shift from intellectual knowledge to, physical skill, I always like to use the swimming analogy.
The swimming analogy is one of the best ways to understand this. Let's do it.
Okay, so imagine you want to learn to swim. You can buy the best textbook on hydrodynamics.
You can study the physics of buoyancy.
You can memorize the exact angle your arm should enter the water. You can even pass a written test on swimming with a score of 100%.
But if you've never actually been in the pool?
None of that matters.
Exactly. The moment you fall into the water, you will sink.
Why?
Because swimming is not a theory, it's a skill. It's physical and cognitive coordination.
And speaking is exactly the same.
Speaking is a physical act. It involves your tongue, your lips, your breath control, your brain's timing. Grammar is the theory of the water.
Right.
But speaking is getting wet.
You cannot learn to swim by reading rules, and you cannot learn to speak fluently by reading grammar books. At some point, you just have to jump in and splash around.
And you have to accept that you might swallow some water. You might look a little ungraceful at first.
Those are the mistakes.
That's right. That's part of the process. If you stay on the dry land of your textbook because you're afraid of getting wet, you will never, ever be fluent.
I think part of the reason people are so afraid to get wet is that they have this idealized image of what a native speaker sounds like.
Oh, absolutely.
They think we're these perfect grammar machines who never make mistakes.
That is the biggest myth in language learning, and it causes so much unnecessary anxiety. We need to do a serious reality check on how native speakers actually talk.
Let's do it. Let's debunk the perfect native myth. Because when you actually listen to transcripts of native speakers talking casually, like we are right now, it's incredibly messy.
And it's a chaos. Total chaos. If you look at the raw data of native speech, it is full of incomplete sentences. We start a thought, we change direction halfway through, and we just abandon the original grammatical structure.
All the time.
We use the wrong tenses sometimes. We slur words together. We rely so heavily on context rather than perfect syntax.
And we use fillers constantly. We say, sort of.
Exactly. And those fillers, they serve a purpose. They buy us thinking time without breaking that audio connection.
Right.
But a learner hears a native speaker and their brain kind of filters out all that messiness. They only hear the good English. They hold themselves to a standard of perfection that even we don't meet.
That is so true. A student will beat themselves up for saying he don't instead of he doesn't. But I hear native speakers say he don't in casual context all the time.
Right. And even when natives make what we might call errors, and technically we do, communication remains clear. And that is the key.
The message gets through.
The message gets through. Native speakers operate on patterns, not rigid rules. We're not conjugating verbs in our heads before we speak.
No way.
We are just releasing patterns that we've heard a million times. We're operating on that procedural, that muscle memory level.
So fluency comes from pattern recognition, not rule adherence.
Bingo. It's about rhythm and flow, not checking boxes on a grammar test.
Okay, so we have established a problem. Grammar books are a safety blanket that's actually, suffocating your fluency. We know we need to stop obsessing over rules, but I can hear our listeners asking, okay, that makes sense, but what do I do instead?
$1 million question.
If I stop studying grammar, how do I actually improve?
That is the question. And the answer is we need to shift the focus from learning rules to acquiring chunks.
Chunks. This is a bit of a buzzword in linguistics, but it is so, so important. Let's talk about what a chunk actually is.
Okay, a chunk is a group of words that naturally go together. We often call them collocations.
All right.
The crucial thing is that the brain processes a chunk as one single unit of meaning rather than, say, 3 or 4 separate words that you need to glue together with grammar.
So instead of building a sentence brick by brick, you're using prefabricated walls.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. Let's look at a concrete example. Strategy number 1 is to focus on common collocations.
Could you give us an example of how this helps a student avoid that grammar trap we were talking about?
Certainly. Let's take the verb to decide. A learner who is building from scratch might think, I need to make a decision, do a decision, have a decision.
Creative decision.
Right. They're wrestling with the verb and the noun, trying to fit them together. But a fluent speaker just has the chunk, make a decision.
It's one piece.
They don't think about the grammar of it. It's just one vocabulary item. Make a decision.
Take a break is another classic one.
Yeah.
You usually don't have a break or do a break in American English. You take a break.
Exactly. When you learn take a break as a single sound unit, you bypass the grammar processing entirely. You save mental energy.
Because you're not asking which verb.
You're not. You just say the chunk.
So the advice here is, when you learn a new noun, don't just learn the noun. Learn the verb that goes with it.
Always. Never learn a word in isolation. It's not just shower. It's take a shower.
It's not just mistake.
It is make a mistake. If you fill your mental library with these chunks, your access speed skyrockets because you're retrieving one big piece of information instead of trying to assemble 4 small pieces under pressure.
That makes so much sense. Now let's talk about strategy number 2. This one is a real lifesaver for feeling more confident and managing the flow of conversation.
It is.
Fixed phrases.
Fixed phrases are your anchors. These are ready-made sentences or partial sentences that require 0 grammatical construction in your brain. You just press play.
I'm thinking of phrases like, to be honest.
Yes.
Or at the end of the day.
Exactly. To be honest, in my opinion, that's a good point. What I'm trying to say is these are incredibly powerful tools.
So how do these specifically help with that selector problem we talked about earlier, that feeling of being overwhelmed with choices?
They act as buffers. Remember when we said your brain is like a computer trying to load a program?
Yeah.
When your brain is frantically searching for the next substantial word, you can throw out a fixed phrase like, you know what I mean, or to tell you the truth.
Oh, I see.
These phrases buy you 2 or 3 seconds of airtime. They keep the rhythm of the conversation going while your brain catches up.
They prevent the silence.
Yeah.
Keep the ball in the air.
They prevent the silence, and they make you sound incredibly natural. Native speakers use these constantly.
All the time.
If you can master 10 or 20 of these conversational lubricants, as I call them, you will instantly sound more fluent, even if your underlying grammar hasn't changed at all.
It's like having a few magic spells in your pocket that you can cast whenever you get stuck.
That is a great way to put it. And the best part is you really can't get them wrong. You memorize them as a block. You don't have to conjugate to be honest. It's just to be honest. Always.
I love that. Now let's move to strategy number 3. Continuous speaking. This sounds a bit like an endurance sport.
It kind of is. This is the practice of speaking without stopping yourself. We sometimes call this the no U-turn rule.
The no U-turn rule. I imagine this is very, very hard for perfectionists.
It is excruciatingly hard at first. The goal is to push through that urge to self-correct. When you're practicing speaking, maybe talking to yourself in the car or chatting with a trusted language partner, you make a deal with yourself.
What's the deal?
I am not allowed to correct myself.
So if I say, yesterday I buy a car, I have to just keep going. I can't stop and say, oh, sorry, bot.
You must keep going. You say, yesterday I buy a car and it was red. Just keep the train moving. The moment you stop to correct buy to bought, you have derailed the train. You've reinforced the habit of monitoring. You've given power back to that internal editor.
So you're training the editor to be quiet.
You need to train your brain to prioritize flow over accuracy.
It feels risky, though. It feels like you're practicing bad English.
It feels messy, but remember the swimming analogy. You're splashing. You're keeping your head above water.
Right.
If you stop to analyze your stroke every 2 seconds, you sink. In a real conversation, if you make a mistake but keep talking, the listener will follow you. Context fills in the gaps.
What if you stop?
But if you stop and apologize and correct, the listener gets distracted by the correction, not the original mistake.
So it's about quantity over quality, at least for a while during this phase.
Yes. At the B2 level, to break the plateau, you need volume. You need miles on the odometer. You don't need to polish the engine anymore. You need to drive the car.
I want to add one more strategy that ties into this physical aspect of speaking. We should talk about shadowing.
Oh, absolutely. Shadowing is essentially the workout for your mouth muscles. It's what bridges the gap between hearing and speaking.
So how does a student actually do shadowing properly? Because I think some people confuse it with just repeat after me.
Right. It's not listen, pause, repeat. That's just a memory test. Shadowing is simultaneous.
At the same time.
At the exact same time. You play a podcast like this one or a YouTube video of a native speaker, and you try to speak along with them, like you're singing along to a song you know.
You're there, kiddo.
You mimic their speed, their pauses, their intonation, their emotion. You're trying to become a parrot.
So you're bypassing your brain's analysis.
Completely. You're forcing your mouth to follow the native pattern. It forces you to use those chunks and connected speech patterns we talked about earlier.
How so?
Well, if the speaker says, I'm going to go, you have to say, I'm going to go. You don't have time to expand it to, I'm going to go, or you'll fall behind.
That sounds like a fantastic way to build that procedural memory, that muscle memory we discussed.
It is the most effective way I know to build physical fluency without needing a conversation partner.
Okay, so let's synthesize all of this. We've covered a lot of ground today. What is the main takeaway for our listeners who are feeling stuck on that plateau?
The final thought is this. Grammar is a tool, not the goal.
Right.
The goal is connection. The goal is communication. At the B2 level, adding more tools to your belt won't help if you don't know how to use the ones you already have.
More grammar input will not result in better speaking output.
No.
Only more speaking will do that.
Precisely. You have to let go of perfection. You have to make peace with the fact that you will make mistakes. And you have to realize that nobody cares about your grammar mistakes as much as you do.
That is the absolute truth. People just want to hear what you have to say. They want to know you, not your verb conjugations.
Fluency grows when grammar moves to the background and your voice, your personality, comes forward. That is the shift you need to make.
I feel inspired just talking about it. I hope you listening are feeling that relief too. Put down the grammar book.
Put it down, hide it, put it in the closet, seriously. See what happens to your confidence when you stop judging yourself against a textbook and start just using the language to live.
I dare you to try it. I bet you'll be surprised by how much lighter you feel.
And how much more you actually speak.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining us on ESL Listening Practice today. It's been a pleasure helping you navigate this intermediate plateau.
Keep talking, keep making mistakes, and we'll see you next time.
Bye for now.